The family Chantel star Pedro Jimeno has been rumored to be on a potential spin-off after his marriage to Chantel Everett ended, but I'm worried that a spin-off would hide his villainous nature. Pedro, who first appeared with Chantel on the 90-Day Fiancé franchise, has been one of the most polarizing figures for years. While his relationship with Chantel seemed like a genuine match, there were red flags about Pedro from the beginning. As their time in the 90-Day Fiancé franchise progressed, Chantel and Pedro's relationship was documented on the family Chantel and became more complicated than expected. Chantel and Pedro chose to keep their families in the dark about their relationship for quite some time after coming from the Dominican Republic to the U.S., shielding themselves from the criticism they seemed certain they'd face from their loved ones. While both Pedro and Chantel were in their mid to late 20s, the pair knew that their families would struggle to accept their romantic connection, which formed when Pedro began tutoring Chantel in Spanish. With disapproval from both sides, Pedro and Chantel struggled in their relationship and eventual marriage, which was heavily documented on the family Chantel during its 5-season run. Though Chantel was often seen as a caring, loving wife during the family Chantel's run, Pedro struggled to keep up with her as a husband. His behavior on the show was on par with that of a villain, as he consistently chose not to defend her from the wrath of his mother, Lydia Morel, or his sister, Nicole Jimeno. Pedro's wishy-washy attitude wasn't something that he or Chantel could explain away, but he consistently leaned on Chantel for support while refusing to reciprocate. If Pedro got a spin-off, I fear his narrative would be far different than his true nature. Chantel was the hero on the family Chantel. She was the moral grounding of the show. Although Chantel and Pedro were the stars of the family Chantel together, Chantel was often seen as the moral backbone of the series, while Pedro was seen as a part of her story. Because of the way Chantel and Pedro got together and chose to keep their relationship a secret from their families, things were often difficult between Chantel's parents and Pedro, as well as Pedro's family and Chantel. With both families struggling to see the validity in their relationship, things often moved back to Chantel when it came to grounding the show in a realistic and understandable narrative place. Chantel was able to communicate with her family, Pedro, and Pedro's family throughout the show's run, and was hopeful she'd be able to make strides in creating a better relationship for all of them to coexist. While Chantel was convinced she could help Pedro make amends with her family, things between Chantel and Pedro's family were similarly difficult. As the more positive of the pair, Chantel got burdened on the series with the responsibility to ensure that everyone was communicating to the best of their abilities. As the hero of the family Chantel, she was seen in a positive light. Pedro's true nature wasn't always shown. He was often searching for clout. Although Pedro and Chantel were both the main characters of the family Chantel, it was clear that Chantel was more of a positive presence while Pedro wasn't. Though his negativity and difficult nature wasn't always shown to its full extent, Pedro was often more cynical than Chantel and appeared to be lazier, looking to use the show for clout and as an excuse not to push himself past his limits. While Chantel was hoping to build a new life with Pedro, he was using the family Chantel as an excuse to stay stagnant. Pedro's issues weren't entirely acknowledged on screen. 90-Day franchise fans are interested in more Pedro. They want to know what happened after his split. While some 90-Day Fiancé stars are more interested in seeing more of Chantel in the future, others are invested in Pedro, Lydia, Nicole, and the rest of their family. Though Pedro's been more of a negative presence in the 90-Day franchise, many would be interested in seeing his life after his marriage to Chantel, understanding what he's doing and where he's going after divorce, and learning more about what he thinks about the entire relationship now that it's over. Interest in a Pedro spin-off has grown, and many are wondering why it hasn't happened yet on the network. A spin-off could paint Pedro in too positive a light. It may not show his real nature. Although a spin-off focusing on Pedro and the rest of his family could prove interesting, it could be a difficult sell for those who have seen Pedro's behavior at its worst. If Pedro were the center of the series, it's more likely that he would be shown in a positive light than a negative one. Pedro's actions should be shown realistically, giving the good and the bad, and I believe that a spin-off would erase the villain in him.